Hey there folks, sorry about the noise of the heating, it ain't turning off. In this video we're going to be making Millionaire Shortbread, Caramel Shortbread, whatever way you want to call it. It's not a difficult recipe, but I tend to make it over a couple of days, so due to editing, by the end of this video I might look a little bit different. I might not. But basically it's not a difficult recipe, but you make it in stages. If you want to make it all in one day, you can do that by basically freezing each section as you go along, but otherwise take your time, plan it in advance, stick it in the fridge, next day make the next bit, and it doesn't take that long. In small chunks, it's the wait in between stages that actually takes a bit of time with this one, but it's gorgeous, it's well worth your time. Make this. Yum 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 yum. So let's crack on and do it. So the first thing we do before we start prepping any of our ingredients is get our baking tray ready with some greaseproof paper. Just cut it at the edges and make sure it fits in nicely, just so you get that sort of seal when you go to put your biscuit base in, followed by the caramel, then the chocolate. So you can mix your base by hand, but I have a machine, so I'm going to use it. Why have a dog and bark yourself? So we're measuring out 120 grams of granulated sugar into the food mixer or your mixing bowl, whichever direction you're doing it. To the same bowl we're going to add 320 grams of plain flour, and for any American viewers that's all-purpose flour, so that's 320 grams to the same mixture. We are then looking for 250 grams, one block of butter, salted, unsalted. I find it doesn't make much of a difference, but we're going to soften this up if you haven't already got it softened, so I'm just going to stick this in the microwave to get it a bit softer before adding it to the mixture. And as you can see here, there's a little bit of runniness to it, but not much. It is mainly just now a softened block of butter rather than entirely liquidized. So it's just a very short blast in the microwave just to get that sort of softer texture. Otherwise, leave it out for a couple of hours at room temperature before using it, just so it gets to a more malleable consistency for when you're putting it through the processor. And now that all the ingredients are in our mixing bowl, we want to take it over and give it a really good whiz in the food mixer. It's a really fast process this, we're just looking for it all to come together nice and evenly, and once it's done that you can turn it off. So it's a really fast blitz, once it's done that, stop. And just over a minute later, this is the sort of texture and consistency you're looking for. And now we're going to take our mixture back to our greaseproof lined baking tray, and we're just going to spread it around. Now I find using the back of a spoon, a good metal spoon, lets you really just spread it out evenly and well. You can start off with a spatula but quickly progress onto the metal spoon. Now the biscuit base here doesn't need to be completely smooth and flat, just close as damn, so go for as much as you can, but you're going to get some ridges from the spoon. Don't worry about that, it's what we've got, is what we're looking for. Then take a fork and you're putting holes in it just as you see here. That just allows when the biscuit's getting cooked for it to close up a little bit. Before this is ready to be cooked, you need to chill it in your fridge for an hour or two, or in your freezer for about 15, maybe 20 minutes. And then we're going to stick it in a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius for 15 to 17 minutes until it's just a light golden colour touching on it. You'll see exactly what I mean here just when we take it out of the oven. And it's this golden brown texture that is absolutely perfect. Any more cooked and it's just a little bit hard, your biscuit base, this is just exactly the way you want it. Now I tend to let this cool overnight and do my caramel the next day, but if you want you can crack on and do your caramel the same day, but you need to let your base cool for a couple of hours first. So moving onwards, we're looking to measure out 200 grams of butter for the caramel base, there or thereabouts, as close as you can make it. And now measure out 200 grams of light brown sugar. You can measure this straight into the pot that you're going to be making your sauce in. I just find it a little bit simpler that way. And to this mixture, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of table salt. I really do advise you don't skip the salt, make sure you add it because the salted caramel in this filling is so much nicer than just sweet caramel. So 1 teaspoon of salt. And you follow your salt with 4 tablespoons of golden syrup. I remember as a young lad I used to just eating this stuff raw whenever I was baking something with my mum. Yum, 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 yum. And to the pot we're going to add 2 cans of condensed milk. Now when it comes to getting it out the can, I find a good sharp spatula is the best way to go because this is a gloopy sticky mixture and it does take a little bit of effort to get it all out of the tin. So just turn it upside down, pour as much as you can and then get that spatula in there and just scrape right in. But I find a sharp one works best for me. If anybody's got a different hint or tip on how to get it out even easier, let us know. Also, if anybody's came across a good vegan alternative for this, let me know because I try to make most of my meals vegan, but this is anything but. And lastly, we can now add the butter that we've already measured out. I find it best to take and chop that butter into chunks. It will just melt a little bit easier rather than just putting a big solid block in. So just as you see me doing here, chop it up into nice cubes and that just does the job so much easier. So now that all our ingredients are in the pot, we're going to stick it on a high heat. Now we need to keep mixing this and stirring it because otherwise it will stick and burn. So literally as soon as you turn the heat on, start stirring. And once we get it to a boil, we're going to turn the heat down slightly to a sort of medium high. But at the minute it's just stir, stir, stir and let it get up to temperature until we've got that boil. Now use a big long spatula because this thing can spark and you don't want hot scalding caramel landing on your skin. So get it up to a nice high heat but use as long a spatula as you've got so that when it gets to the boiling stage you can keep your hands well clear. Now it does take a few minutes for it to get to the runny stage and it'll take a few more minutes again before it starts getting to the boil. Don't worry about it, just take your time and bring it up to temperature. The most important part, and I can't reiterate this enough though, is keep it moving. Don't let it stick to the bottom, don't let it catch on the pan, keep it moving so you get a nice even cook through it with no burns. Now when it reaches the boil, which we can see it just doing here, I often put on a silicone glove because it just helps protect the hand from any splashes because you are going to get some. If you don't have the silicone glove, just make sure you've got a very long spatula because this stuff hurts like heck if you let it burn you. So don't let it burn you. Now we're going to cook this for roughly 5 minutes. We're just looking for the colour to darken a little bit, not massive amounts, but when the colour darkens a little bit we're going to pour it out and get it on our biscuit base. And the jump cut edit I'm doing here will hopefully let you see the tone shift change in the caramel that we're making and how it's just slightly thicker and slightly darker. You can definitely see it, but as you're standing there for the 5 minutes cooking, it's a little bit hard to notice, but that little difference there should hopefully make it easier to spot. Now, even with all the care in the world, I've still managed to catch my caramel a little bit. It does tend to happen as you actually try to take it out the pot as well. The stuff that's at the bottom for some reason just seems to catch as you go along. You're always going to get some, but the more you can minimise this, the better it is for the overall taste and flavour. So just get a big spatula and scrape all this out, and again be careful you don't burn yourself with this because it's scalding hot, boily, sticky sugar stuff. You don't want it on your skin if you can avoid it. Then take your spatula, just move it right round the edges, give it a couple of bangs up and down on your work surface as well just to try and level it out. At this point I always have a little play with my greaseproof paper as well. Just make sure it's tight up the edges, give it a wee pull just as you can see me doing, and that way the caramel doesn't get in behind. And this now needs to be cool completely before we pour in our chocolate topping. And once the caramel is completely cooled, I'm just telling you here, this is the most important part of the entire cook. This is the therapeutic part. This is where you take your chocolate and beat the utter hell out of it. Smash it up. Take all your angst and anger out on that bar of chocolate. And then when you've got rid of it all, take what's remaining and take it out in the second bar. And once we have the chocolate fragmented up as best as we possibly can, we're going to take it and add it to a small bowl, one that fits well into our boiling pot of water. So measure up and check your bowl size versus your pot size before we start. But we're just going to get it all in there, make sure you get every little bit of that chocolate out of that tin foil, because let's not waste chocolate, folks, eh? Now, to help achieve a runny consistency to our chocolate, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of cooking oil. That's 1 per bar, so 2 teaspoons of cooking oil. And now take a pot of boiling water, stick it on the ring, and then we're going to put our chocolate on top of that, our chocolate broiler, and we're going to melt it. And as you see here, don't overfill your pot! Now, this process doesn't take long, it's really quick. All we're looking to do is get our chocolate melted down. Once it's fully melted, once all of those chunks are broken down, we're going to get it and we're going to lift it out carefully so you don't burn your fingers, any steam escaping. We're going to take it out and we're going to pour it onto our biscuit base. And this is pretty much the perfect consistency, and because we added that little bit of oil, it just adds to the smoothness, the runniness, and makes it that much easier to move around and then pour. Now, you can do this with white or dark chocolate as well, but with the white chocolate you are going to add a lot more oil, probably double, maybe even a little bit more. You're going to have to play it by ear when it comes to the white chocolate, because it just needs that little bit more oil to get it moving and get it in a pourable consistency. It tends to be a bit chunky when you're doing it, but both work on top of the milk, but I prefer the milk. And now you want to take and spread it over the top of your caramel. Again, this is going to cool down really quickly, so get it out your bowl, get a nice sharp spatula, get it out onto it, spread it and push it around all the corners, and then let it cool and set properly. Again, if you wish, you can speed up the process by sticking it in your fridge, but you tend to get a white crusty topping to your chocolate, so if you don't want that, let it air cool and then keep it in the fridge if you want, or just keep it in a box outside. I think keeping it outside the fridge overall is a bit nicer because it just leaves a slightly softer caramel, but if you like a harder bite to your caramel, then store it in the fridge for when you're going to use it. And once it has completely set, we just want to take it out of our deep fill baking tray and then gently peel back the grease poof lining. Now, if we've done this well, there shouldn't really be any lining within the biscuit, within the caramel or within the chocolate, but it sometimes does happen on the corners. It's just the nature of the beast, and you just need to be gently tuck and pull that on the way out of it. But just pull it down nice and easy before we get in with our big kitchen knife and chop this up into the sizes that we're looking for. Well, that's it, all done. Millionaire shortbread, caramel shortbread, whatever you want to call it. And moment of truth. I love this stuff. If you've not made it, go ahead and make it. You can also make this with dark chocolate, you can also make it with white chocolate. If you're making it with white chocolate, you can use a bit more oil because the white chocolate doesn't like to melt. You can also make it with a less expensive chocolate, like a Galaxy or something like that. It's still really nice, but it's not as nice as the Green and Black's cooking chocolate. That just adds so much more to it. Unfortunately, under our circumstances, if I'm making it for the family, I've got to make it with this stuff or make it with lint. I think I've said before, but the wife and son's allergic to chocolate, apart from a couple of brands. I think it's to do with the way they actually break down their cocoa or something like that. But gorgeous stuff. Go ahead, make it. If you haven't already, subscribe, hit the like, and thank you very much for watching. Take care.